All right, we are up and running. So what you're looking at now is the Funky Flower. This is a very cool design. This is, I would say, a little bit more of an advanced design. Well, you know what? You'll decide for yourself. I'm not going to tell you. Maybe you won't agree with me. Maybe you'll say this isn't advanced. Well, you know what? Whoops. You'll decide for yourself. I'm not going to tell you. Oops. Turn down my... Okay, there we go. So I've got it. Now I've done this design in a few different color patterns. This is my rainbow version. Okay, starts with the red and goes out in a somewhat of a I call it a Roy G. B pattern. And then I've also done it in the purples and the blues, which is also a very, very popular one. I'll pull up the camera so you can sort of see the whole thing here. And now I'm just going to fix my lighting, because once I take the shiny plates away, I want to add more light onto my plate because it won't reflect. Move this in so you can get a better view of the details. Because really, one of the things that's interesting about this design, or teaching it, if you will, is just the fact that once we get through a few rounds of it, you will get the hang of it. And you won't need me anymore. All right, so your plates are marked similarly. You've got your tool that has your numbers, right? Your tips 1 through 8, 1 being the smallest, 8 being the largest. You have your paint, your pods of paint. I pour from left to right. So generally, you're going to start on the left and we're going to work our way out. That's pretty important here because the last two on the outside actually is doubled because you need more for that one. So, let's see why that is not happening. It's showing here, but it's not showing up here. Don't know that I care, but okay. Don't know why it's not showing live. I really have to look at that. Why do we think it's not showing on here?
On your page?
Yeah. I mean, it's showing, it's just not showing it. The picture is like a still picture. And it's also really closed in. It's not my normal thing. Oh, wait. Let's see what we got here. I have 5 people watching, theoretically a black screen. That's probably boring.
Want me to check it on
Yeah, I do. You know I want you to check it, because I don't know. I can hear me.
That was an old video.
Oh,
I checked
okay.
to see what dot tools we used for one of them.
Got it. All right. April's on. She's so funny. All right.
Okay.
So mine is for some reason black. Let's see. Yours is fine?
I see the plate.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, the heck with it. I mean, I know what I'm doing, so I'm not really going to worry about it. Now, I'm actually going to do, for the sample, I'm going to do, there we go, we've got motion now. I'm going to do the purple and blue plate. But I will also, for the fun of it, do my best to also reference the colors for the rainbow plate, if I can do that without losing my mind. Okay, so you've got your paints, you have your paper towel, which is slightly dampened, so you can use it to clean your tool as you go. Paints, tool, paper towel, and your plate. So that's really, all you need. Keep in mind your hands should be clean, and you should have your plate on the paper placemat that it came with so that you don't have to put your hands all over the plate in order to turn it. I, of course, get to cheat and put mine up on a turntable, but assuming you don't have a turntable, you want to pick up your paper placemat if you can to turn it. It's particularly for this design, although I find it true for every design. I always want to work from my side of strength. I am left-handed, so I dot much better on the left. So if I have to dot over here, I don't want to reach over, because I won't have my dots over here reaching like this, will not be the same as dots that I do like this. So I just turn my plate around. So we're going to start by using the largest dot, tip number 8, and I'm going to use my color on the left, which for me is a dark blue. And if you're doing rainbow, it would be the red. And I'm going to put a dot right in the center. That's my move. That's how we get it started, okay? And then we're going to switch over to tip number 3. And same color, and the marks that are the closest in marks that are around the center, we're going to put a dot on. So it's tip number 3, same color. Okay. What matters the most is if you try-ish to make your dots the same size. And to do that, what that really means is you're kind of dipping consistently and you're dotting consistently. And this is all dip and dot. So you're not going to try to do more than 1 dot per dip. All right, and that's how you're going to get the most consistent looking plate. All right, so that's that one. And then what we're also going to do next is what I call triangulate. And you're going to, on the line, or on the circle now, is what I want to say, that goes around it, you're going to use the same tip, which is tip number 3, same color, which is either the blue, the one I'm doing, or the red if you're doing the rainbow. And between those 2 dots, but up on the circle, you're going to put another dot, so it makes a little triangle. So here's my 2 dots. Right in the middle, I'm going to put a dot so it looks like a triangle. I'm going to do that all the way around. All right. This is just filling in the center, so it is not as critical. This is a good place to start and get your hands on your plate, because it will become a lot more critical when we get to the outside of this center. All right, so that's our center for right now. We'll come back later and put one more mark in that, but we're going to let this dry and we're going to get our other bits started. So what I'm going to point out to you, I don't actually have my pointer, my usual pointer here. I must have moved it, so I'm going to use a pen. We're going to start the design, the big dots, okay, which is the lines. All right, I'm putting the plate back here so you can see. So these big dots, which go straight up, dot on the line that's drawn, okay? Dot, dot, dot. So that's what we're, that's what we're going to do there. So we're going to start with, here's a shocker, same color. We're going to use the number 5 tip. We're always going to use the number 5 tip. And I like to do is to dot them all at the same time. Okay, so I start right at the bottom, dot, dip and dot, dip and dot. These, as close as, you want to get these, this is a toughie one, as close together as possible, but don't let them run into each other. And the way you can regulate that is by how long you hold it on the plate for. So like even this first one that isn't quite as large, I can come back and add a tiny little bit to that. So there's nothing wrong with that, okay? And when you get your plate, you won't have these blue lines because they sometimes freak people out. Like, well, but it fires away, but I'm doing it so that you can see them, the lines really clearly on the video. I'm going to put 3 of them in a row. As close together, here's why close together matters. The design will look good close together or not close together, but you will not be able to fit as many rows as I have in my sample if you don't keep them close-ish together. And it's not the end of the world, because I'm going to show you at the end how you deal with that if you run out of room. In fact, I have one coming out of the kiln today, but it's not ready yet, where that's exactly what happens. So not a big deal. It actually still looks really good. So I'm just putting 3 dots, one of, the same size, close together, 2, 3. All right, 1, 2, and 3. And now the last one, 1, 2, and 3. All right. So I'm going to clean that tip up. And now what we're going to do, and I want you to, if you wouldn't mind, to watch this one. Oh, thanks, Kathy. I love positive reinforcement. Wait till you see how this is done. It's super fun. All right, so now we're going to still use the same color. We're going to use tip number 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to do what I call a dot, 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 which is you don't re-dip. You dot, and then you just keep dotting with what's on your tip. And we're going to come down to the top of this mark. So this is what I mean. All right, you want to start in the middle of this dot. So I'm just doing that so you can see it. And then dot, 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 dot. In this case, you're not always going to have the same number of dots. 2, 3, 4. Okay, I've yet to see that it matters. And we're going to do the same thing for the dot right above it. Okay, so you're going to now make it parallel. So 1, 2, I didn't get enough. Sorry, my bad. 1, 2, 3, 4. I usually use 4 at this beginning stage. And then from here, 1, 2, 3, because I've already done this middle one. Okay, the one at the base of the V, if you will. Now, here's something that's important. I'm going to show it to you on this one. I wanted you to get the feel of it. Certainly after this one, you want to try to make that last dot, that V dot, almost invisible. And you want to try to make your dots align, so in a straight line. Whoops, so you're going to do 1, 2, 3, and even if it means you have to go very lightly so you can hardly see it, that's fine. And then 1, 2, 3, and just, I'm doing it again because it was so light. And it really doesn't matter, to be honest, if it is really invisible, okay? So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to start in the middle. 1, 2, 3, almost invisible, or in my world, invisible. And then on the other side, start in the middle. 1, 2, 3. All right. 1, 2, 3, very light. There we go. That's what I wanted to show you. If you can see that. 1, 2, 3. You want to keep them close together so you can kind of get those 4 in there. So again, same thing. Try to make it in a line. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to be honest and tell you, in my experience, having done probably at least a half a dozen of these so far, I don't find that it matters very much at this early stage. So this is a great stage to practice at. What does matter is trying to get that shape, that angled shape. But really just getting it down and trying to have them not run into each other. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. All right, is this making sense? I hope so. 1, 2. So just as a reminder, we're using tip 2, and you're using that same color. So in this case, it's blue. But if you're doing the rainbow, you're still using the red. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, didn't even nail that one. That one's very light. 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to put tiny taps, so I get the tiniest of little lines there. Oops, I don't know why it's not moving for me. There we go. Okay, there we go. We're back. All right, so I'm going to do it again. And this is why I think for this one, it's really important that you're always dotting in the same direction, because it's not so hard on your brain when you don't have to turn it around. Whoops, dip. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a little bit heavy for a center dot. So I want to not do that again. Like I said, it's really not the biggest of deals at this point. But this is good practice for the other rays that we're going to do in a second, going further out. So it's good to practice just using a nice light hand on that last dot. 2, 3, 4. And if it doesn't show on the first one, it's fine, because guess what? You can go back and grab it on this one. All that matters is you have 4 on one side and then 3 on the other, because that's what, that last 4th one, if you will, is your center. So whether you grab it on the first one or you grab it on the second one, it doesn't really matter. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Now, I don't think there's going to be any questions because I didn't really advertise this one. Doing this one for my friends up at Howe Caverns who wanted a new design. They couldn't wait. So I'm like, I know one I think you guys would like. So 2, 3. All right. So it's kind of cool how this is, you can start to see the basics of it kind of coming together. 1, 2, 3, very light on that last one. Again, reminder, tip number 2, coming out the side, 1, 2, 3. Now mine will look different. It looks super different when you're doing it on a white plate like I am versus on yours, which is black. So, but it's easier for you to see it if I'm doing it on a white plate. So I'm just doing this because I care more about you seeing it than anything else. All right? And as I always remind you every single time, if you make a mistake, if you have 2 dots that run together, for right now, just leave it alone. Don't worry about it. We can fix it later. It's much easier to fix when your paint dries than it is while the paint is wet. It will smear and make a mess, and the more you scrub at it, the more you're likely to take off that base coat, which you might not even notice, and we won't notice it until we fire it. So, all right, so that's basically what that first level looks like. All right, it's already starting to look like something. And see that cool flower design in the middle? I know, I really like it. So the last thing I do with this color, which is our first color, which in my case is the blue, because I'm doing the blue and purple plate. And if you're doing the rainbow plate, it's red, is I'm going to take tip number 4, and I'm just going to put a dot, again, with the triangulation, all right, kind of right in the middle of that, I don't know, petal, I don't know what to call it. So right up there, but straight on the line, right above the dot and below this one. I don't want it to be too close to my 3 dots, so really focus on trying to get it in the middle. And then we'll be done with this color. And that's basically how this design goes. It's very funny. You finish a color and then you don't use it again versus other designs where we do. So, you know, we come back to them. But this one, that's going to finish up. So we're going to move on to our purple, our first purple, our quote-unquote darker purple. And so for me, that's what I'm using. And if you're doing the rainbow, then you're going to use the orange. And again, we're going to go back to tip number 5. And remember that the colors of wet glaze don't necessarily look like what they look like when they're fired. So the fact that mine is going to look pink here, 1. Now, one of the things is not important. Okay, so one of the things to remember is when you switch to a new color, be tentative, because different colors have different viscosities, I know, for those of you who join me every week, you're like, I'm tired of that word, but they're, you know, kind of different thicknesses, and I don't want to go splat with all my might and then end up with this giant dot. So dot lightly the first time so you get a feel for what this color does. This color happens to be fairly similar to my first color, so, but that's just luck. It can depend on a lot of different factors, even including when the paints are poured. That's why I try to pour them close to the time of the class or when I think you're going to use them so that they don't change. But as long as you start off tentatively, key thing about painting is you can always add more, you can't add less. And you really can't make dots smaller. I mean, you could try to at the end when I show you how we clean up. But, and remember, what we're trying to do is to keep these close in together, all right, without touching, so that we make sure we have enough room for all the colors. Okay. So I'm going to be, even though this isn't, I mean, I'm doing this obviously as a Facebook Live, and I'm excited that there's, you know, people actually watching, which is fun. It makes it a lot more interesting for me than just filming a video and talking to nobody. But we will have this one available up on our website for you to purchase the kit, just like our other ones. So this one's called Funky Flower. All right, so, and then you can watch the video again. Sorry, I'll finish the sentence. and you know, while you do it. The nice thing about that is you can just pause the video anytime you need to. So now we're going to switch back. Now that we've done that, we're going to, now before, if you remember, we used the number 2 tip, but now we're going to move up to the number 3 tip when we do our little dots. So 1, 2, 3, and a very light number 4, and then 1, 2, 3. And just going to do all of those. 1, 2, 3, very tiny. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, tiny. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right, so we're going to do that all the way around. 1, 2, 3, tiny. 1, 2, 3. We've been having a lot of fun doing these dot mandala plates. We are kind of going full tilt today, prepping the... Actually, we're all prepped, I think, for next Tuesday's class, which is pretty funny. So I'm going to point something out, interrupt myself. I had 4 dots on this side. Normally, I would have 3, but I added a 5th one because it started to be a lot of room. It matters more is that you fill the space. So don't worry if you end up with an uneven number. It really doesn't matter. You can't count them later. You know, you can't see it. So sometimes that'll happen. Nobody really does it exactly the same on both sides. Just matters that you try to be kind of, keep your technique the same. I like to point out which are really critical issues and which are not. And this one is not. So this one I actually have 4, instead of doing 4 and 3, because we're getting further out on the plate, I end up with 4 and 4. Okay? That's why we keep using a slightly larger tip as we go to the outside. So anyway, if you wanted to join us for our live class on Tuesday at 6, or that one's called Happy Days. I think it's a very happy plate. I don't know, probably all my plates are happy. I don't mean to judge. But it has like a little fireworks design in it, so I think that's kind of cool. Oops, 1, 2, 3, 4. Alrighty. And then the week after, we are doing one of our most popular ones. I designed that one a while ago, and I keep doing it, which I love, because it's a really functional piece. It's an oval dish. I don't think I have a sample nearby, maybe. I thought someone might hear me and offer to grab one. I can show you the 2 that are coming up, the Happy Days and the oval. Ooh, I'm also give you a little spoiler today. I'm going to show you the one I literally just came out of the kiln last night. Brand new design. April, you'll appreciate this because this is one of the ones that you inspired me to do. All right. Thank you. Mm-hmm. The other one that's the new one is like on the table, on the... Like the drop-off table? Yeah, on the drop-off table, all the way up against the wall. Thank you. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, no matter how much I mark these, I often find that I'm not completely, whoops, that's the wrong color, centered, which, thank you, is like, says a lot about me. No, I'm just kidding. Not a big deal. One of the things about this design is it has so many dots in it that it's really about the whole effect you're creating. So the key thing here is that the effect that you're creating is you want to make sure that as you're going into the center, your dots are getting tiny, tiny, tiny. That's the most important attribute about it, particularly as you go further out. Okay. Okay. So that's what it looks like with the second layer. Woohoo! So as you figured out, now we're going to repeat for the next two colors, which will be yellow if you're doing rainbow, or the lighter blue if you're doing this purple one. So we're going to, again, number 5, we're going to do our 3 big dots. And remember, what you want to do is test it first. So this one I'm finding is to be a lot more liquidy than the other ones. So this is a much lighter touch. Okay, otherwise you're going to end up with a super huge dot. And then once you have it, all right, then you're good to go. All right. I don't even think I have any. All right, cool. Again, even though it's not advertised, I'm just looking to see if anybody who is watching has any questions or comments, but I don't see anything recent. So I'm doing my 3, because that really helps me to plan. I like to do all 3 of these at once. Find it comes out a lot more consistent. So this will be posted on our Facebook page, so you can follow along. We also have our own YouTube channel, which you can access through our website or directly, of course, on YouTube. But the point is that you don't have to go back and get it on Facebook. You can go to our website. So the same place on our website where you go to order the kit is where you'll find the link to that video. So that makes it super easy. All right, so we were so now you're on the yellow. So before, so this is the third getting ready. So before we were using the number 3. Now for the rest of them, we're going to use the number 4 tip, okay, for the dot, dot, dot. So we're going to start out here because we need these dots to get bigger. So they can be pretty big to start with, and they'll fall off pretty quickly. And again, you can manage that by how hard you press. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice and little. That's what we want. See, if this was back in the olden days when we had in-person classes, this is where I'd be wandering around, making sure everybody's got the idea of it. I think it's so funny to try to do this without being able to do that. It took me a while to get used to that, to not being able to see what everyone was doing and give tips. But even if when I've tried to do this on Zoom, it's just too many people for it to really work out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And as I said, one of the bits that's not as important on this is how many dots are in it. As long as the main thing is that middle dot, that V dot, is teeny tiny, almost invisible. That's the most important attribute of this design. And we are using the number 4 tip for this one, for this dot, 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 and we will be using that here on in. So the first dot that we put on the lines are always going to be number 5, because that we want them to be the same size consistently. But from now on, we're going to be starting with this number 4. Okay. All right. Probably should have left the music on, but then if I did that, I'd start singing and that would be distracting and you'd be sad because I really can't sing. Trust me, I'm not just saying that. Oops, don't laugh. Don't laugh. So I'm thinking that by now you've kind of got the hang of this, and listening to me, you can just put me on mute and then fast forward in a minute so you don't have to listen to my babble. I assume that when you watch this, you know, and you were doing it to the video versus the live, that you probably pause from time to time. I dot a lot, so I'm pretty fast at it. But I assume that people who don't dot daily, so I'm a daily dotter, I admit it, who don't dot as much as I do, probably. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. I can't believe I skipped one. I always find that when I dot, it's like, how did I skip an entire section? That's so weird. Don't dot as quickly, and nor should you. I don't, you know, speed is not a thing here. Okay, it's really precision that matters and following the pattern. This, you know, a lot of times when I'm talking to people about doing the dot mandalas and I talk about how relaxing it is, this is one, even though it's a little bit more of a, maybe, I don't know, it's a little harder to get started, but then once you get going on it, it's actually probably one of the easiest designs because it has fewer different kinds of techniques of dots. But it's very relaxing because it's consistent. I think it's like one of the reasons, it's similar to diamond dots. I don't know if you guys are familiar with those kits, but they're all the rage. I can barely keep them in stock right now because they're really a lot of fun, but they're super relaxing and they're great for all ages and people can work on them together, kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. And it's great, you know, when you have lots of time to fill. So that's the second blue. All right. And I think that if you're doing the rainbow plate, let's see, what comes next? Green. Your color would be green, but mine is going to be the other purple, or the next purple, I guess is really the right word for that. It's kind of a pinkish purple. I'm going to use the number 5 tip. Sounds familiar, right? I always double check. And we're going to do 1. And again, when you start these, I know I'm a broken record, but make sure you dot it somewhat lightly first so that you can know that you know the size of your dots, because you really want them to be somewhat identical if possible. And we are trying to do them somewhat close together without touching, if we can, so that we have room. So this one I'm going to have, looks like I've done it well versus the one I did last night where I had to economize at the end. If you find that you're at the end and you don't have room after this row for 6 more dots, you can break your last 2 into 2 rows instead of 3. Just spoiler alert. I usually will do that rather than doing a 3 and a 2 because I don't want that last one to look like an afterthought. So I just as soon do a 2 and a 2. It comes out pretty bold. I don't have an example. Like I said, it's in the kiln right now. But I haven't seen that it looks significantly different, interestingly enough. Whoops. So there's one where I got off. So I'll just leave it there and clean it up at the end. I will show you how to do that. And then again, we're going to go back to number 4, tip, and we're going to do our dot, dot, dots. I'm going to start over here this time. 3, 4, 5. And this now, and we get this far out, we're actually having a lot more dots. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because, all right, because there's a lot more plate to fill up. And I don't want to go to a bigger dot size because I don't want the dots to be the same size as the ones on the line. So that's a 5 and this one's a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I feel like I don't want to have to like just talk at you all the time. So I hope you guys have enjoyed doing these. I mean, I find them, it's a lot of fun. I think it's kind of fun that so many of us are going to have this whole collection of plates that we did during this time. I hope it becomes a good memory of how we took lemons and made some lemonade. That's just me being obnoxiously, positive. Sorry about that. Tend to be that way. I don't think it is what it is, but it's kind of cool. I know that's kind of exciting to, have something to look forward to, both in terms of an activity or the class, during the week, but then also coming into a few days later, or when you come to pick up your next kit, and seeing your plate from last week. Pretty cool. All right. Yeah, even though I dipped what I think is the same on each one, you don't always get the exact same amount of glaze, so I always start off a little bit tentative and then make sure I've got what I think I've got before I go whole hog on it. You can probably easily start to see how this design, and you can see it easily, you can see, like so many designs, this is true when you're painting just about anything, is the different perspective you have when you get your face away from your particular one you're working on and try and look at it in totality. So if I lift my head and I look at it on the screen, what you're looking at, it's like, oh yeah, I see how this is coming together. So that's kind of good. So hopefully you can do that as well. All right, now last one of this color. Oops, I'm gonna need to tilt on this one a little bit, I think, which could be a little gnarly. There, and I got plenty of paint left. I know, I feel badly. Everybody's always worried about the fact that they have so much glaze left over, but I'm always more worried about you running out of glaze in the middle of a step. So I think that's kind of a worse problem. But now that I've switched over to these paint pods, I find it a lot easier to measure. So I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so that's our second purple, or the green if you're doing the rainbow. And then if you're doing the rainbow, you have a light blue or a medium blue next, and we're gonna have a light blue on ours because we've gone blue, purple, and now we have a light blue. This light blue looks pretty white. So what I was saying before is I'm going to put my 2 dots on here. One, my first 2. Now I can look at this and I could say, okay, so if I'm going to clean this so if I point, I don't make you crazy. If I put my 3rd dot here, I feel comfortable that I have room for 3 more dots up here. So I'm going to make sure that that shows up, that I'm pointing. I feel like, yeah, you can see that. So 1, 1, 2, 3. So I'm cool with doing 3 on this one. But alternatively, you could also do 2 here and then 2 on the next, particularly if you don't want it to go all the way to the edge. If you want there to be a little bit more of the, you know, of the black showing, if you want it more contained on the plate. So there's no right or wrong. I just recommend from a design standpoint that if you're going to do 2, that you do 2 on both of the last rows. So just for that sake, so you can see what it looks like, I'm just going to do 2 myself so that you guys can see what that looks like. Because you can already imagine that it looks just fine with 3. But I want you to see what it looks like with just 2 rows of the last 2 colors. All right. Man, oh man, I have to say, I'm not bragging or anything, but this turntable is a dream. I don't even have one of these at home. I think that's particularly funny because I do all my designing at home. You'd think I had one there, but I don't. Okay, so tip number 4. Then again, for our connector, our little dot, dot, dot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I do try to keep them in as straight a line as I can. I have my moments, some are straighter than others, but again, I haven't seen that it is the end of the world in terms of how it affects the overall design. When you get out here, it can be harder to get enough paint on your tip to last the entire line. So if you were to run dry, I just recommend if we're on tip 4 that you go down to tip 2. If you're going to pick up, like, let's just say I ran out of paint here. Okay, I wouldn't re-dip the same tip. I'm going to go out, I'm going to do this to show you. I'm going to dip tip 2 because then I'm going to get a nice smaller dot for the end. So I hope that made sense to you. So I'll do it again. If we start here, 1, 2, oh no, I ran out of paint. So I'm going to go down to tip 2 and dip that because then I'll get a nice small dot. Also, I love doing this because then I get paint all over my hands, which personally I'm a fan of. Okay. When you get out here, it helps a lot if you can keep your lines straight. It really sets up the whole look of the piece. Mine are okay today. They're not brilliant, I'm being honest. I do wish I could always show them to you when they're fired. Well, I guess I have the other samples, but even just to show you the one that we just did together. But I'd have to do time-lapse. Come back 30 hours from now, and that seems a little bit cumbersome. Oh, look at this. There's a pink one that I missed. That's pretty funny. Okay, only I think it's funny. Probably you guys were looking at it before going, did she know she missed one? All right, so I'm coming back to the pink, still with the number 4 tip. Fill this one in. If you're not sure, it's not the end of the world if you do the 2 on the one that I did 2 rows on instead of 3. It's perfectly reasonable to do 2 and then look at the whole thing and decide if you really want, if you have room to do the 3rd one. So it's not a decision that you have to make early on. I tend to do all of my large dots on the line at one time, but there's not actually a huge reason for that. All right. Okay. So that's that layer. And then as I mentioned at the beginning, but it might not have mattered to you because it wasn't relevant, I actually gave you 2 pods of the last color. So on the rainbow it's white, and on here it's a lilac. Because it's the biggest area, you sometimes could use it up. So we're still going to go with the number 5 tip. And in this case, on my sample one, I'm going to just put 2 dots because that's what I did on the row before. But when I get near the slope, I like to pick up the plate a little bit so that the, excuse me, the rim of the plate is parallel to the table so that my dots don't run. So I'm going to do 1 and 2. So it does slow up a little bit because you don't have to wait for them to dry, but you kind of have to wait for them to set a little bit. All right, so I'll usually hold it on an angle so that I can do 2 at the same time. So 1 and 2. And then I just have to wait for a little second for it to set. Again, that's basically about all you really need. And then 1, 2. So if you guys, anyone who's watching who stumbled upon us and doesn't know what we do these dot mandala classes every Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. And they're all on our website, thestudioforartandcraft.com, and you can order your kit ahead of time, of course. And you can either join us live on Tuesday nights, and I can take your, if you have any questions or want me to go through something again or whatever, I can do that. Or you can watch the video at your own leisure, at your own convenience. It stays up on our Facebook page, and it's also available on our YouTube channel, which you can easily access through our website. So that's what I'm doing in this one. So this gives you an idea. By doing it tight, you can see how much leftover room I have, which isn't a ton, which is one of the reasons I decided to. And mine aren't all perfectly even, and that's, to be honest, kind of the norm. All right, so now we're going to go back to number 4, and we're going to connect these. And I'm still holding my hand up so that the area I'm working on is a little bit tilted so that my dots don't run. Because that's bad. All right. Because this is so wide, you often will use a lot more paint on this one than you do on any of the other ones, particularly if you're doing 3 rows. All right, so it's really starting to come together now. It's really starting to look like something, huh? It's always a relief. no, what happened to my Facebook? Oh well, I don't care. I know what I'm doing. Isn't that funny how it's been doing that today? Why? I wonder why.
Internet connection maybe?
I'm not even on the internet. I haven't even basically running out of battery, which is a different issue. Forgot to charge. It doesn't matter. This is just me watching me. It's not really that exciting. And I'm almost done. So, but really need to check my battery next time. Oh, you know what? I bet it's draining so fast because it's looking for an internet connection because I forgot to take it. Yeah, that's my bad. Okay. Emma, head out? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, just a few more of these. Remember, you have plenty of this last color, so don't skimp. Just go right into the other pot of it. All right. So, as I was saying, you can either do, on the last two, you can either do 3 rows just like everything else, or you can take it down to 2 rows each, depending upon how much room you have left. You know, some people are heavy dotters, some people are light dotters. I tend to be a heavy dotter. Some people are close dotters, and some people are far apart dotters, so I tend to be heavy and far apart. So I'm going to be one of those people that runs out of room more frequently. So my designs are kind of designed for people like me who run out of room, which I guess is good because it can never hurt to have more room. It can just be bad to have not enough room. So I'm going to finish this one up. And then the last thing I do, all right, on this is nothing. This is it. You do have the option on one of the, sometimes I've double dotted on the center. On this one, on the blue and purple one, I didn't. I've kind of gotten away from double dotting because I don't like, on this particular design, I don't double dot the center because I don't like how it pulls your attention away from the basics, you know, the design emanating from the middle. Like I like it being a constant blue in the middle. But you certainly can take any lighter color that you have in your palette and take any of your smaller tips and put a little dot on the center. I always start with a smaller one like number 2 because what? Because you can always add more, you can't add less. All right, so you guys are working. I'm going to get up and look for, oh, nope, that's not my tool. Well, this will work for a tool. So I happen to have a stylus here that I'm going to use to show you how to clean up a dot. Now, this is my favorite part, okay, where I go and look for the dot that I thought before was a disaster. So give me a few minutes. I will find it. I had one. Ah, here it is. All right, now it's not really as dry as I would like it to be. I generally prefer it to be pretty darn dry when I get to this point. But for the purpose of showing you, all I'm going to do is very lightly. You can use a toothpick. I think a toothpick's good. What you don't want to do, the reason why you don't want to go too deep is you don't want to mess with that base coat that's underneath. That's pretty hard to fix without. So, and then you just blow it away, or just leave it there if it's on it. There we go. And all I'm trying to do is to make like a little line right there, a point of differentiation. What's cool about this is that the glazes will settle themselves into circles in the kiln. So I'm not really worried about the shape so much. And that's this design, you guys. This is the Funky Flower. It had once been one of my dreams to make this in like a lot of different colors. And so I had one for like everyone in my family. So I'm kind of on my way. I think I've got 5 of them now, which is a little bit crazy, but I enjoy it a great deal. So just so you know, I'm just going to turn the light away for a second while I show you some of the other, though this is what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, that's the one I just did. And what I'm showing you on this one is how this one has 3 rows all consistently all the way to the end. You can see it goes all the way to the end. Okay, so I decided on the one that I was just doing that I was going to narrow it down to 2. So the other thing I mentioned was what other plates that we have coming up. So this one I called Happy Days. I know, I name them all myself, so sometimes with help from my staff, but there's no one to blame but me. But I like this one because it has this like little fireworks kind of look to it. Oops, let me indicate it over here so you can see it better. Let's see, a little closer to the pod would help it out there. All right, so see if I can, yeah, there you go. So you can see the fireworks and moved it in a little bit. So that's Happy Days. That's coming up this next Tuesday. And then the week after, I don't really know what date that is, so sorry about that. As I mentioned, this is one of our more popular plates. This is our oval. I call it a cheese plate because, frankly, that's the thing I've served on it. But this is like an off-center design, which is fun because it's a little bit perfect, I think, for May, because not only do you have the full design, but then you have the little like dandelion kind of things shooting off, which I like. And this one, you can have your choice of background color. I almost always give a choice of background. Black or white or black or off-white is most common. Most people choose the black, but I find this looks best either in this off antique white or in this jade green. Those are the two I think it looks the sharpest in. So, and then lastly, oops, that's not it. Oh, here it is. Making this much more complicated than it has to be. All right, so that's the jade green. And then the brand new design that just came out of the kiln yesterday. Honestly, haven't even named it yet. But this is the one that we will be doing the following week. It's kind of like a, I don't know. I'm working on it. I'm open to suggestions. If anybody has any that they would like, I'm happy to name it by committee. I have no objection. And this is cool because this one just uses 3 tones of the same color. So this is in blue, but you could do it in purples or greens. Like it would look nice in warm colors, even maybe, you know, in a red and orange or red and pink. I mean, depends on what you want. So you can choose your color palette for that, and that'll be right on the website where you order it. It will ask you what color family you want, and it'll give a bunch of choices, and we'll have your custom kit ready for you. So thank you guys for joining in. I'm putting my plate back so that you can see it as we fade away, and hopefully you will have a lot of fun. Thank you, Amy. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And thanks so much, and I'll see some of you on Tuesday.